Okay, guys, this is Miss Ellie, and I'm going to talk about the Anglo-Saxon period. With my A group, you guys are going to get this information in class, but with my B group, you're doing this at home, so I thought it might be better to do a video to go along with it so that you could get some of the information that I talk about that's not always on the slides, okay? So you should be working on your guided notes page while we're doing this, and we're starting off with, of course, the Anglo-Saxon period. It's 449 to 1066 AD. The island that we now refer to as Britain, that was the home of the Celtic people at this time. In 449, they were being invaded by Scottish and Irish tribes and could not fight them off. My understanding, when you look at history, like Scottish and Irish folks, when many people kind of consider them not to be as, I guess, civilized as others, especially like as people in Britain. And so there was always that, I guess, like fear of invasion. But at this time, they really were being invaded by them, so they had some serious problems going on. And they asked for help from the Anglos, the Saxons, and the Jutes. Those are folks from Denmark, and these are all Germanic tribes. Unfortunately, though, instead of helping them, these folks invaded Britain and they took everything over. And that's why it ends up being called Angleland. So imagine how that would feel for them, to have everything taken away from you by the folks that you're asking to help you. That's got to be a pretty difficult situation. And you're going to be going through a lot of emotions at that time. So English history and literature begins in 449 AD. Now, English language. During this time, the language was growing because we had so many people stuck together in one area. So just to look at some of the words, Anglo-Saxons brought in things like to, and, for, man, wife, child, drink, eat, sleep, and so on. What do you think that means about them? If you look at that, looking at how, or looking at the language that people develop can help us to better understand them. So they have the word wife, but they also have man. So a lot of people would look at that as they see women as subservient. That's why a lot of times when people are having a wedding ceremony, they want it to be husband and wife because that shows that we are on equal standing. But if it's man and wife, that's like, okay, he's a person, you're his property, that kind of thing. When Christian missionaries started coming to England around 600 AD, they brought words such as altar, monk, preach, school, anthem, rule, candle, offer, and hymn. So that says a lot about their culture. What did they value? From 787 to 1000 AD, Vikings came to the island with words such as live, take, give, live, husband, sky, trust, and rotten. And that actually makes a link to what I said before, because with the Anglo-Saxons, they had man and wife. Vikings have husband in addition to wife. So the Vikings, that tells us a lot about them. They actually believed in equality among men and women, and we can learn that not just from their language, but also from history. Their women fought alongside them as shield maidens. When the Normans invaded and conquered the Anglo-Saxons, they brought 10,000 words like action, adventure, marriage, power, vision, rage, and honest. And again, I want you to think about, like, what does that say about these folks? And also, if you think about it, when you look at our language, what does that say about us? We can learn a lot from folks just by looking at their language. Okay, so Christianity of the Anglo-Saxons. In 596, missionaries came and attempted to convert them to Christianity. By 650, most Anglo-Saxons were Christians in name anyway, even though they still held on to some of their pagan traditions. So why do you think that would be important to hold on to those traditions? That's something I want you to think about on that sheet. Why are they still holding on to it? Even though they're in name, in front of everybody, they're saying, hey, I'm a Christian, but they're still engaging in these pagan traditions. Why would you want to do that if you're switching to another religion? Something to think about on your notes there. More invasions. Danish invasions during the 700s and 800s. The Danes and the Normans began attacking the island of Britain and almost won until Alfred the Great, a Saxon, fought back and won the country back, and there was peace for a while. So that doesn't bode well. And then when Alfred's grandson Edward died in 1066, there was an argument over the throne. And back in the day when, with kings and queens, if you didn't have a solid heir in line, there's always going to be an argument because people want to be in charge and they want to have that position. It comes with money, power, estates, all kinds of cool stuff like that. So they're willing to do just about anything, sometimes even kill people for it. The Duke of Normandy claimed the throne, but the English chose Harold II. Okay, so there's some dissension in the ranks there. The Duke retaliated by attacking and defeating the Anglo-Saxons at the Battle of Hastings, so more war. The Anglo-Saxon period ended in 1066 when the Normans won the Battle of Hastings, and the Duke, William the Conqueror, was the new king. Now, when we look at social order, we got some things going on too. So based on warrior bonds, these folks, these Anglo-Saxons, they bonded together under a strong leader. And they were heroic groups, they were rural, they were tribal, they were very loyal to one another, but especially their leader. The core of the culture was that warrior bond for each other and their leader. A lot of these people, they would get into it, they'd have these blood feuds, it would be ugly. But when you have a warrior bond with somebody, then you will back them up no matter what. It's one for all and all for one. You're messing with one of us, you're messing with all of us. That's where that man price idea comes in. So it's kind of a gang mentality with the idea of, you can't fight one of us without fighting all of us. Okay, so they always felt like they had to protect or avenge. They had the obligation to their king, their ruler, and, whoever their lead warrior was. And then after battles, there was a strict payment of treasure. A lot of times back then, like when they would fight, they would loot the place and then split up treasure. Usually, I know with Vikings, they had like an earl or a king, and that person got the biggest chunk of the treasure, whether they were there or not. And a lot of tribes would take on that attitude. The chief gets the most. And then their chiefs are selected for loyalty, generosity, strength, and courage. Those are really good attributes to have. Some vocabulary to look at. Mead, that's an alcoholic beverage that folks will be drinking in Beowulf. Weird Fate, that's the inevitable. An elegy is a poem of mourning. So all literature at this time was oral. Nothing was written because they didn't have a written language. So that's the only way they could get their stories across. Literature and history was passed down by Scops, people in each tribe who composed stories and songs about the tribe and its heroes. So this would be like the most popular person because this is the only entertainment that you're going to get in that society. The stories were passed down from generation to generation. And, this dude told stories every night after supper. So imagine what the story would be like since it's not written down. It's just passed down orally after years and years and years. It's like playing that game telephone. What you started out with may not be the same as what you end up with. Beowulf was written around 700 AD. We're not real sure that that's the exact time just because there was nothing written. There was nothing... there's not great records from back then. The author was unknown because originally it was, orally passed on. It is known the poet was a Christian aristocrat and professional by language. The poet composed it in his head and then they performed it, and the poem was not written down for about 250 years. So for 250 years, this got passed around. So imagine how different it is based, in comparison to what it might have been. Not to mention the guys performing it, they may have made little slight changes. Maybe if they were performing it for an audience that was full of a lot of warriors, they might want to make the battles more bloody or something, or focus on other things if they were with a different kind of audience. So who knows what the original story might have had that this one doesn't. Okay, so it is an epic poem. So an epic poem is a long narrative poem about a national hero who has the virtues and qualities of his society values, my bad. Epic poems are fiction with some fact put in it. So there's a little bit of something there that's true, but a whole lot of fiction. An epic hero is courageous, resourceful, loyal, generous, willing to avenge wrongs, gentle, brave, strong, loves beauty, has deep feelings, and is able to express feelings. So sounds like a pretty awesome dude. Our story, what little I'm going to tell you about it before we start, takes place in Denmark and Sweden, not England. It's in the Heorot, which is the hall of Hrothgar, king of Danes. Grendel is a monster who is a descendant of Cain, so there's a biblical reference there. Beowulf is a prince of Geats, a Swede, and it's the first great work of the English national literature. Now, here's what I want you to do. You should have your guided notes done. So in a Google Doc, I want you to answer these questions for me and turn them in as well. I want both documents attached. You got 3 questions. 1, how would you describe a modern day hero? Explain with an example. So that can be an example from real life, TV, movies, books, comic books, and so on. 2, why would authors continue to focus on heroes throughout time? Like, what's the big draw for that? And 3, what do you think Beowulf is going to be about? Now, if you've already read it or seen a movie about it, then try to think creatively, because sometimes, for one thing, movies don't always follow the book. And I don't want you to, I want you to think creatively. Like, what do you think this is going to be about? All right. So that should take care of everything. Make sure that you get both of those attached so that you can get your credit. And then if you have any questions, you can feel free to message me. That's pretty much it. I'm going to sign off.